Weston Media YouTube commercial, take 50, action.
Here at Best 10 Media.
Cut and action.
Here at West 10 Media.
You're facing the wrong direction.
Line? Can you give me the line?
At West 10 Media, we bring news, sports, and entertainment to YouTube.
Okay, I can do it. Wait, forget all these lines. How about I just flex on them fools for a second? Just let them see what's behind the camera at West 10 Media.
We're just gonna dub it in.
At West 10 Media, we bring news, sports, and entertainment to YouTube. Remember to like, hit the bell, and subscribe.
Yeah, I make a pretty good pitch, man. I got this.
Ooh, shit.
Welcome back to the latest bestsellers list. And as you can see, the theme this week is pitching. Gotta have a good delivery. Something that I need to work on apparently. So hopefully I can deliver this top 10 in a way that entertains you and informs you as I talk about the 10 greatest pitchers of all time. And then I get to talk to a great pitcher in between the countdown, Larry Dagen. You know, on all levels from the majors to college to high school, when you got a dominant pitcher, you can have a great team. And when he played with the Millington Trojans back in the 70s, you know, he brought it. And when you're striking out 13, 15, 17 in a game, I don't care how many you're facing, that's very impressive. So we're about to enjoy the park out here in Bartlett today as we hear the birds chirping behind me and count down the 10 greatest pitchers of all time.
Just sale.
Okay, coming in at number 10 this week is the great Sandy Colfax. You're going to hear a little bit more about him later. He was a role model to a lot of kids back in the 50s, 60s when they were coming up because he wasn't that big of a guy. He wasn't huge, gigantic. He looked like an average guy walking the streets, but when he got on that mound for the LA Dodgers, he was phenomenal. Him and his tag partner, Don Drysdale, were a great tandem back in the 1960s for the Dodgers. Here's run down some of the facts. He won 165 games with a 2.76 ERA and a 1.11 whip and had over 2,000 strikeouts. So you're asking yourself, those are good numbers, but not just great numbers. He only played 11 years. Most of the other people just count down pitched for 15, 20 years. In 11 years, tendonitis in his elbow shut him down. But we got to give some love to Sandy Colfax because he was great for that short period of time.
Just sale.
Hey, coming in at number 9 this week is the great Bob Gibson. Now, growing up in the Memphis area, you're going to hear about the St. Louis Cardinal great. Bob Gibson, his playing career went from 1959 to 1975, and they said his best year was 1968. Cy Young winner, of course, intimidating. If you crowd the plate, he made sure you back off that plate. And he was, I guess another reason why he was special to a lot of people, he was a black pitcher during that time. And he basically built his career off the greats like Satchel Paige from the Negro Leagues and athletes like that show, hey, we can get that out there on the mound, command pitches, understand the game, get a feel for batters, and go out there and handle things. And he was one of the best to do it all time. 251 career wins, a 2.91 ERA, and over 3,000 strikeouts. I would say that's a pretty good career, and we had to have the St. Louis Cardinal great on this countdown.
Just sale.
Now coming in at number 8 this week, every year Major League Baseball hands out 2 awards to the 2 best pitchers, one in the American League and one in the National League. That award is called the Cy Young Award. It's not a made-up name, and he's number 8 on this countdown. Cy Young, he set all the records. Let me just read it from here. From 1890, so this is how old he is, 1911, he won 511 games. Nobody's touching that record. He had a 1.3 ERA, a 1.13 whip, and close to 3,000 strikeouts. He pitched over 7,000 innings. He had a lot of quantity. If he had more quality, he'd be ranked higher on this list. But for him setting the standards how modern day pitchers have to pitch today, that's the reason why he will forever be remembered with the Cy Young Award, and that's why he makes his countdown number 8.
Just sale.
Number 7 this week. Now, the opposite of Sandy Colfax, if you're looking at stature, is Randy Johnson. This man stood at 6'10". I'm pretty sure he gave basketball a try, but thank God he settled for pitching. And one of the nastiest sliders you've ever seen. Now, this is a pitcher that I can remember, and some of you out there can, because he played from 1988 to 2009. A lot of people remember 2001 when he helped the Arizona Diamondbacks upset the Yankees in the World Series. Now he pitched a relief effort. The man can hit 100 miles per hour on a regular basis with his power pitching. Won over 300 games, 303 to be exact, with a 3.29 ERA. The reason why it's high because he power pitched in an era of power hitters and steroids. Wink, wink. Sometimes he got popped, but Randy Johnson won more battles than he lost because he struck out 4,875 guys. So Randy Johnson definitely earned a spot as the big unit on this countdown.
Just sale.
And speaking of another power pitcher, coming in number 6 this week, Roger Clemens. Now, this is a tale of two careers, two eras. When he came in 1984, he came in blazing. Had a 20 strikeout game up in Detroit. Was a young phenom for the Boston Red Sox. Was a key pitcher in 1986 that helped them come one game away from the World Championship. Then he kind of started to suck. No other way to put it. Then he had a resurgence with the Toronto Blue Jays, so good that the Yankees picked him up, and he had dominance there. So his career numbers pan out to 354 wins, a 3.12 ERA, 4,672 strikeouts, pitching 4,916 innings. So he almost struck out a batter per inning that he pitched in his career. Now, there's some question marks about his legacy because that second half of his career, was he taking performance-enhancing drugs and all that kind of stuff? But all I know is he still went out there and dominated and had a command of the plate like no other during his era from 1984 to 2007. So speaking of eras, like I aforementioned, my good friend, Coach Larry Dagen, also an alderman, busy guy out there in Millington. So I'm going to track him down and talk to him about pitching since he dominated from the mound. He understands what it takes to be a dominant pitcher. So we're going to go out to Millington and chat with Larry Dagen. Hi, it's Thomas Sellers Jr. back with the Midway Point, and I'm honored to have here with me local businessman, local alderman, local realtor, local runner. Okay, a man of many trades, Coach Larry Dagen. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to sit with us to talk about pitching.
My pleasure.
Something that you're familiar with because here in Millington, I heard you were a legend back in the 70s.
Boy.
15 strikeout games, 17 strikeout games. So who better to talk to about pitching than Larry Dagen?
Well, I'll do my best.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And plus, I know I can come talk to you about other stuff too.
There you go.
and at the end, you can promote yourself and all the things that you're involved in. But let's talk pitching first.
Let's do it.
Okay, so in high school, you had to go out there and take the ball.
Right.
And what is a pitcher thinking? Because baseball is a team game, but it has a lot of individual elements. You the man that the coach is putting the ball in his hand.
You bet.
What's going through your mind?
Well, it all starts with pitching. You know what I mean? And when you think about, there's so many different aspects of the game, like you say. And then when you look at the most important two aspects, it's scoring runs and defending. And your defense starts with your pitching. So I was fortunate. Boy, I was so fortunate to have a great coach, high school coach, Ronnie Osborne. And
Mississippi State.
That's right, Mississippi State. And as a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know, he was actually the head coach at UT for one season.
Wow.
Just before he left the coaching ranks, he was actually put in because something happened where the coach resigned early in the season, and Ronnie had to come in and was the head coach at UT Knoxville. So, we've got some great history when it comes to baseball in Millington High School.
Yes, and your name's on a lot of those records.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah,
I'd love to know if that's the case.
Yeah, I think most strikeouts in the season.
Maybe we'll see.
So young Larry Dagen is growing up, watching the game of baseball. Who are some of the pitchers that he admired and like, hey, I want to be like him?
Well, okay, so you want to talk about let's just talk about my all-time favorite pitcher.
Okay.
If you had to think of a left-hander that was now, because you're going back a long ways. Remember, I'm 62 years old, going to be 62 years old this year.
Wow.
But when I was growing up, Cade was for Colfax.
Say no more. He's in my top 10.
Is he? Very good. He should be.
Yeah, tendonitis in the elbow, in that left elbow.
But it didn't matter. He was a beast.
Yeah, him and Drysdale.
Drysdale for the Dodgers.
They were
yes.
to be reckoned with. So.
You bet.
So, but growing up in this area, did Bob Gibson?
Gibson. Oh, of course.
Okay.
I mean, when you're a kid and you're in the, underneath the lights at night, and your neighborhood kids are there, and they're all saying, Colfax, 3-2, and Gibson. Oh, Bob was intimidating. Are you kidding me?
Yes. I think a few brushback pitches.
Ooh, he was tough as they come, man.
But the first name you mentioned was Sandy Colfax. Why? What would make him so special to you?
Well, I when I was a kid, I read a book about Colfax. His history, and he was actually a very good basketball player, more so than baseball. And somebody talked him into picking up a baseball. Next thing you know, he was throwing that thing 100 miles an hour, just a big beast.
Yeah.
And so it was a secondary thing to him, and it was interesting to see that a guy can just be an athlete, and a lot of times growing up in a small community like ours, you don't have the nicety of having a guy who is all out one sport.
Yeah.
To me, it's good to be multi-sported when it comes to a kid in school. And Colfax appealed to me. He was a very humble man. He was, I think he comes from a Jewish background, okay? And he was very humble and just got out there and did the job. I love to watch him grow, man.
Him and like a John Stockton, they walked into a store, they would look like a normal everyday guy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so,
Absolutely.
but you touched on some multi-sports. When I met you back in early 2000, now it made me feel like you were a coach of multiple sports.
Yeah.
At Millington Central High School, your alma mater. So soccer, baseball. So as
Football.
coach, football. So as coach, and now you still watch the game of baseball. Through those years, who were the pitchers like of the 90s,
Oh,
the
gosh.
80s, and the 2000s? You're like, hey, this guy's pretty good.
And let me tell you how fortunate I was. I was living in Wichita Falls, Texas, and a couple of my buddies, we got together to go to Texas Ranger, the new stadium, and we got to see Nolan Ryan
I knew you were going to say that now.
pitch against the big boy from Boston.
That's Clemens.
And let me tell you something.
Both on my list. Yeah.
Listen, Clemens was a beast. He's a big, strong boy. And of course, Nolan Ryan was just a country boy. But that Ryan had a live arm, son.
Yes,
He could let it go. Gosh, he could let it go.
From the 60s to the 90s, he
He
just
was
had
good.
that. Well, here's the funny fact that I found out. He never won a Cy Young Award.
Absolutely not. Can you imagine he has 4 no-hitters in one season?
Yeah, and 7 overall, and no Cy Young.
How did that happen?
Somebody just had a better year than he did.
That's what happened.
And a great Cy Young is on my list as well. So as we get to today, and you still watch the game, who are some of the guys today that you like?
Oh, I'm gonna embarrass myself because it's funny. The older I get, the sport that what do you think the biggest sport I'm watching now? And I don't get the names. I don't
Resonate.
not like 20 years ago. Now it's just a love for sport. When I watch a soccer match, I'm not so engrossed with the player, but I'm engrossed with the play. I'm engrossed with the team. I'm looking at, the way they're forming their formations and watching how each person plays together.
Well, you helped raise 3 valedictorians at Millington
Lord.
Central High School, and all of them played
Bless.
soccer.
Yeah,
So I guess you grew to love the game.
I did. I certainly did.
But you're always gonna be a pitcher at heart.
Well, and I was blessed to be able to help Bo Griffin when he became the head coach of the baseball team to be the pitching coach for 4 years. And again, that's what a blessing to be able to help young people. I think in my life as my ministry when it comes to what I'm trying to do for the kingdom, it's young people, and then my ministry was through sports. So I've been very blessed for that, and long hours now. I'm gonna tell you, baseball. You think football coaches have long hours? Baseball coaches from high school level, long hours.
It's called a game. But to wrap up here,
Sure.
once again, we appreciate your time. Like I said, you're alderman, businessman, relative. You do so much. You and your lovely wife, her, with the Exchange Club in Seattle. So, some of the things you want to promote before we get out of here?
Well, I would say this, Thomas. The city of Millington has been a blessing to me and my family. If I would say anything to anybody in today's climate, our nation, as well as state, local governments, people, I think one of the things as a believer, a believer in Christ and what He stands for, I would just say that we need to all look to that foundation of looking to others before we look at ourselves. And when we look at others in that selflessness, is that we would become good citizens of a wonderful, incredible, democratic society, and that we could just be helpful to one another and to love one another and to look at differences as a strength instead of just simply differences that polarize us and make us opposite and should be bringing us together.
Well, Coach, well said, and I'll wrap up with this. Saying here as a getting to know you over the years, you're a man who wakes up to better himself first and foremost, so he can help others throughout the rest of the day. That's in his place of business, which we're sitting here today on the sideline with kids or at City Hall. You're trying to do what's best for others. So you do unto others, you have them do unto you. And we appreciate it. And I know you're a lovely mom, so I know how you raise.
That's right. That's right. You guys met.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we appreciate you taking the moment with the best sellers list. And we're gonna get to the rest of the countdown.
Giselle.
And we're back from the midway point, and I appreciate Larry taking time to talk with us, you know, and kind of promote the city of Millington, things going on out there as we come back to Bartlett to finish up the rest of the top 5 for this week's countdown. And we're going to go old school with Christy Matheson. Now, playing career, when I say old school, I mean this, you're talking about turn of the century, 1900 to 1916. One of the best pitchers of that era, won 373 games overall with a 2.13 ERA and a 1.06 whip and 2,500 strikeouts during a time where, you know, the dead ball era, you know, the opposition wasn't going to hit the ball too well, but you still had to get them out, and he did a great job of that. He won 22 or more games for 12 consecutive seasons. So you knew once he was coming out there, if you were on his team, you pretty much knew you had a good chance of winning. So the New York Giants enjoyed Christy Matheson, and they helped them become a legendary franchise that still exists today in San Francisco. And that's why he cranks out at number 5 on our countdown.
Giselle.
Now we into my Mount Rushmore of pitchers in Major League Baseball history. And I got to go with, I call him Texas Heat, Mr. Nolan Ryan. He was mentioned by my good friend Larry Dagen because he got a chance to see him play in person. From 1966 to 1993, I think he threw with the same velocity, speed, and intensity. And if you ever YouTube Nolan Ryan and Robin Ventura, you knew he was a guy that you didn't want to mess around with. You had to respect this guy right here. And you talking about Mr. Strikeout King. In the modern era, he's the all-time leader with 5,714 strikeouts, 7 no-hitters, multiple no-hitters in one season. The man, when he was on, he was on. It helped him get 324 wins. Now, he lost 292 because he was on a lot of mediocre teams. That's why he never won the Cy Young and never won a World Series. But usually, he was must-see TV and a must-see guy. You travel to watch Nolan Ryan pitch. And that's why he gets respect from me, and he gets the number 4 spot.
Giselle.
And we're back with number 3, and my number 3 pitcher all time is Mr. Grover Alexander. And a very historic name, very, you know, presidential name there that you hear there. Over 2,000 strikeouts in his career, which dates back to 1911 and 1930. But he did pick up 373 wins. He won the ERA championship 4 times. He finished with a career ERA of 2.56. So, you know, this guy right here, when you pitch 20 seasons and you rack up that many wins and you're 3rd most all time, you definitely should be in the top 3 of anybody's list. And you issue in the era where you pitched during the dead ball era and when Babe Ruth and folks like Lou Gehrig started to be all dominant and you still got some success against them. I give you some mad respect, and that's why Grover Alexander is number 3 on this countdown.
Giselle.
And at number 2 this week, the best pitcher of my lifetime that I got a chance to watch is Mr. Greg Maddox. From 1986 to 2008, the professor of the mound, he wore glasses when he didn't pitch, so he looks like a nerd. And I love the commercial with him and his teammate Tom Glavine when they couldn't impress the chicks, and then they learn how to go out there and hit home runs because chicks dig the long ball. But Greg made sure a lot of guys didn't hit home runs. With a career record of 355 wins compared to 227 losses, a 3.16 ERA, 1.14 whip, 3,371 strikeouts with the Cubs and Braves, picking up a World Series title in '95 with the Braves. He was always the ace of those staff. Now, what made Greg Maddox so special was he had placement. He wasn't going to beat you with a lot of speed, velocity, angles, and just outthinking the opponent what made him so special. And he made guys look silly. You ever get a chance, go on YouTube and watch some of his highlights at his prime with the Atlanta Braves. And that's why I got to give Greg Maddox respect with the number 2 spot and say he's the best pitcher of my lifetime so far.
Giselle.
And we come to number 1 this week, the great Walter Johnson. You know, did you have any doubts out there? From 1907 to 1927, he was simply the best. 417 wins to compare to only 279 losses, a 2.17 ERA, 1.06 whip, 3,509 strikeouts. This dude was like the standard back then, and he sets the standards now. If you go back and look at some of the records, he's a 5-time ERA champion, 12 seasons as the best in strikeouts. You know, he was Randy Johnson, Greg Maddox, and all those guys wrapped up in one. So Walter Johnson definitely deserves his spot on this list. And I'm pretty sure if they were playing in the Olympics back then for baseball, he would have made the team and he would have been the ace on that staff. Speaking of the Olympics, you know what? The Olympics are supposed to start July the 23rd in Tokyo. But as you know, that's not happening. Since that's not happening, maybe I can make up for you out there with my top 10 best female U.S. Summer Olympians of all time. Then I'll follow it up with the top 10 male U.S. Summer Olympians of all time. So come on back next week and we'll get a little dun, dun,